We have got the last little bit, which is about how do we formulate plans, how do we have discussions, how do we bring team members in, how do we get everyone to come on this journey with us when we've got a retinal scan clinic as an example. How do we have an idea, a concept, we've got a leader who's identified something they're really passionate about. How do we then take that into reality and how do we get others to come along with us? Because sometimes that's a hard bit, isn't it? We go, I've got an idea, and everyone goes, yeah, or it never comes off. So how do we get people to come with us rather than resist against us? So have a seat when you're ready and we'll move on and get this done. Feel free to interrupt me as we go if required. All right, first of all we need, remember the Bodenheimer building blocks that we played with before? One of the very first one was engaged leadership, wasn't it? So what we need to do is identify who is actually passionate about the cause. Is there other people that will go, yes, you know what? We now have the 5th edition accreditation standards that say all team members must be involved in quality improvement. We also have PIPQI that says, can we do a quality improvement activity within our practice that the PHN says, that's great, let's do it. So the retinal clinic's a great example of this. Have we identified a need within our cohort of clients that we could actually do something really proactively here? And that's where we need to identify who's actually going to lead this. Because if you just have an idea but don't actually drive it, does it come off? We need to step up, don't we, and go, I've got an idea and I've got some ideas around how it may work. But I also need other people to be in the design phase of it. We know that things to actually come off are better if people feel included in the process, they feel involved in the decision making and the planning. They're more likely to actually come with us because they feel like they're part of that. Yeah, I designed this too. I want to help you. So that's a big component of it as well. And then we're going to make sure the environment supports are in place. What do I mean by that? Have we got the resources like the room? Have we got the endorsement to actually spend time on the planning? Do I need someone to actually give me protected time, that very thing that we all go, what's that? Yeah, have I got that to go through lists, data mining to find out and ascertain whether or not we have a need? And then what is realistic in terms of time management, etc., and planning sessional time to map it out so that we can actually make an effective clinic. What we've seen, particularly in designing nurse-led clinics, is they're great if, you know, when you first of all have the backing of a grant money and you can go away and get educated and put in place some resources or buy some equipment, etc. But we need to build a sustainable model. It needs to be something that doesn't last as long as the project funding's there. It needs to go on. And that's what I liked, particularly when you said, this is going to go on always because we've built it into service delivery. It's part of our usual processes now. Yeah, you've been doing yours for 10 years. You know, it's something that you can see later on down the track, we're going to be doing this because it's really important to do.
Also, that we're probably all doing it, but we're not naming it.
Correct.
And everyone's doing it, and everyone's progressing, but we're not looking at it as, we're not doing PDSAs, we're not doing
Yeah.
those sort of things. We're doing it all.
Yep.
We're trying to progress, we're trying to improve.
Yes.
But we're not acknowledging.
Yeah, and reflective practice through PDSAs is really important. So we're going to have a look at that, which is why we're doing this at the end of today, because as you said, we might be doing quality improvement activities, but until we write them down, until we go back and review and refine and have that reflective practice time, we don't really ever celebrate the achievements we've made and the progress we've made. And that's really important as we move through. So what makes a great leader? I'm going to throw it over to you guys. There's some ideas up there. What makes a great leader? Good communicator, for sure. You've got to be able to communicate your concept, your idea, and then also communicate to get other people involved in the discussions with you. What else?
Role model.
A role model, absolutely. Do you know what? I'm going to roll up my sleeves and I'm going to get in there and demonstrate how it can be done. Awesome. What about for you? Yeah, teamwork's really important, isn't it? Where I was working prior to, up to about 12 months ago, she always had 2 of everything. She said, oh, I'm going to have 2 pap smear nurses, I'm going to have 2 respiratory nurses, I'm going to have 2 coaches, because she said people go on holidays or people leave. So the service needs to continue on, so we'll have 2 of everything. So teamwork's really important. You're not just one person, you go on holidays or something happens untoward and then that service falls over. About for you? Yep. Yeah, great. And that can be from leadership, but it also can be across the team as well. Isn't it great when your teammates say to you, you know, thanks for your help today, that was great. Yeah, you walk home with a little bit of a pep in your step that we've all been in this together. For you, what is an identification of a leader for you?
I think what I like to see, and I think I'm very lucky with the people that I work with, that there's leadership at all levels.
Brilliant.
You know, and it all complements the work together.
Mm-hmm.
I think everyone's got an ability to lead in their own
I agree.
area of speciality or focus area.
Yep.
And that's then supported by good
Yeah.
leaders that are engaged in what the team's doing and helping us keep our focus where it needs to
And people as leaders who acknowledge and empower people to work autonomously and celebrate creative ideas. Great.
Approachable.
Yeah, being approachable. I might have an idea, but if I'm rigid and that's the way it's got to be and I'm not open to people offering ideas and different ways of delivering it, am I going to go very far? No. So we need to also be really collaborative, don't we? You'll hear this, 50 reasons not to do it, okay? So what I want you to do is start to approach things with the reasons why it'll, you know, what we're doing now is working well, that's great, but moving forward we have opportunities. Yeah, we've got opportunities to make things more efficient, create more time, the very things that people are saying that they haven't got. Yeah, where are the opportunities here that you know that's going to move somebody? What are they always telling you they haven't got enough of? Yeah. So how do we influence a positive work environment? Because that's what we're after, isn't it? We want to go to work, show up, and I hear that in what you're saying. You know, we've got leaders all across there. Everyone's really got assets, and that's what we call it, assets and strengths that they bring every day when they show up. And that can make a really big difference, can't it? So what we always talk about is what is working well. What is working well? Even if it's fleeting, even if you just saw it for a glimpse, acknowledge it. It's really important because what we often hear when we work in places is just all the things that went wrong, yeah, all the problems that we have. And that can feel quite exhaustive and also quite overwhelming. So you go home every day feeling a bit weighted down. But if we go and celebrate the things that are working well and the good things that you acknowledge in either your clients or in your staff members or in your leadership teams, that's a really nice influence, isn't it, across the whole team dynamic. There's always, it doesn't matter how much of a champion site you are, there's always opportunities to improve, is there not? There's always things changing. There's always opportunities moving forward. So no matter how good you think you got it now, there's always something better. So keep your eyes open, keep your ears open, because there's always stuff around that you can kind of go, even today, having that protected time when you were doing the mind mapping, you're going, all these things were coming up for you because you weren't at work, you weren't having the phone interrupting you, you weren't having people coming in and asking you questions, and you weren't having a full appointment schedule, which can clog up our creativity and our, you know, designing of new ways with innovation. I always say, and Dee knows this about me particularly, is we've talked about this before and it's her mantra, particularly, you're going to have an issue and there's an opportunity there, come up with some solutions. So it's really nice to encourage people to bring solutions to meetings. If you can set an agenda and say this is the things we're talking about, bring some ideas and some solutions to the meeting, you're going to have a lot more activity within your meetings rather than people sitting there not saying a word for the whole duration of the meeting and then having a meeting after the meeting in the corridors. Oh, how's that going to impact me? I didn't have a time to think about it. So come with some ideas and hear from the whole team what they might see as a good area and opportunity for growth. All right, so asset profiling, what is it? Dee's been sitting here doing strength surveys, and there's a free survey that you can go and do, which I encourage you to go and do, which is called a VIA, literally the acronym VIA, strength survey. If you're unfamiliar with what your personal strengths are at work or at home. And why are they important? Because they're the things that we're naturally good at. They're the things that we're naturally talented at. And you think across your course of your team, how many people have you got that have got amazing skills, yeah? So it's putting those things together. And if there's a particular thing that you go, yeah, I really need this done, you'll naturally find the person that's really skilled at it, won't you? You'll lean towards them. That's their assets. So there's an opportunity, particularly when you have your performance reviews each year, to start to build what's called your asset profile. Look for what's currently working well with that team member. What do they do really well at the moment? What do they like about their job? Starting with what is working, not what isn't. Yeah, much more effective. What has worked in the past? What have they been really good at? Whether it be, you know, when they're in high school or when they are in another position, yeah? So we're going to stop there for a minute and I'm going to ask each of you, what are you really good at? So I'm going to go here.
This is payback for that question.
That's right, this is payback from the question at the start.
I don't know, what am I good at?
Organising.
I'm not good at working out what's good, what I'm good at.
Yeah,
Organising.
organising.
Organising, yeah.
What's Dee really good at?
Communicating.
She is. What about Riff, what's she good at?
Oh, inclusiveness.
Okay.
You see how quick it came out?
Yeah, and do you two work together?
No, different.
Do you know each other well?
No, not really.
Have you met each other today? What would you say she's really good at?
I just,
It's our first time that
yeah, we stayed together.
She wears her jackets really well. She wears cool jackets. She draws really well. You two work together. Tell me what she's really good at.
time management.
Time management. What about for her?
I was actually going to say the same thing. An incredible amount of things that
She can juggle.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Really good at.
So really resilient.
Very.
Yeah. What about for you two?
Engaging women in their health journey whilst also keeping data on track. Driving projects.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Sewing, gardening. The list is endless.
So Mary does many things that really make a difference. She tackles things like the data reporting that would drive me insane. She motivates the team. She keeps the conversations happening by the fact that we get our regular meetings and make sure the agendas are real and discussions are good. I could just keep going.
Yeah. Now, how does that dynamic in a team energy make everyone feel? You know, you only hear about the things that you didn't do or what's yet to be done, rather than going, I actually feel really good. I feel part of this. I feel connected to my team, more importantly. And when we're going to do things together and we're going to step outside our comfort zone and test drive new ways of operating, we better feel pretty connected, huh? Because we've got to have each other's back. We've got to feel like we can try new ways without there being any fallout. We've got to have each other's back always, yeah? I need to feel confident with you, and we need to do this together. So how do we get the engagement within the team? We looked at this in session 1, way back in what month? March. So a little recap for you on how do we communicate with people. And often people think we communicate with people verbally, but that's only just such a small percentage. It's 7% of our communication, 7%. This says so much more. My body language, yeah? My tone and my intonation, so the pitch that I use. Says heaps, doesn't it? So if I go, yeah, that'll happen, I go, which one's actually true? My body language, for sure, isn't it? And if I'm going to pose a question to somebody, I'm better be prepared to actually listen. I need to give you time to think, because I might not be, if you're going to pose a big question to me, ready for it, but I might also need to consider it and then give you the time to come back and give me a response. So I better use some silence there. All right, so those key things are super important. The other important thing is that we reflect back what we're hearing people say, so that you know that I'm listening. So I could be busily typing on my computer and you come up with a great idea, but I'm just midway of doing this. We haven't had a very unplanned conversation that I haven't turned around and given you, eye contact with. But I can reflect back what I'm hearing so you know that you're being heard. Not only is it important that you hear that, but you also feel understood, which is super important. Yeah? Who knows when someone's not listening to them? Can you guys tell? People just nod. I do it all the time with my family members. All the time.
Just your family members.
Rivka's part of my family now. She's part of my family. And And Shane goes, I know you're not listening. Because of the And you go, what did I just say? And I go, I don't know. But, that acknowledgement that you heard someone, but you also understood the context in which they were trying to get you to understand what they were saying, which is super important. All right, I've got a sheet of how do we use powerful questioning. So, a question that goes on too long loses its actual impact. So we need to be mindful of short and concise, open-ended. So a lot of people will use closed-ended questions. Do you? Can you? Assessments. Can you? Think about that. Can you is going to get you yes or no, isn't it? Do you? Yes or no. Is that going to give you deeper understanding of what your clients are actually doing? Do you eat fruit and veggies? Yes. Now you've got to ask another question. What fruit and veggies do you eat? Which one would have been the better one to use right from the get-go? What fruit and veggies do you eat? Yeah? And then they can say, I don't eat any fruit and veggies. Or they could say, I grow a garden and I have a fantastic competition with my grandkids because I really want to influence them to put their hands in the dirt and know how to be sustainable with their fruit and veggies for the rest of their lives, because it's super important they know where their food comes from. That gives me more insight into what that person values and what they're about than a yes/no answer ever. Okay? So think about that. Be really efficient with your time. You're going to get more bang for your buck, so to speak. Be attentive. Watch for that non-verbal communication that I was just saying and step into that space. So if you notice me do something like that, just say, I just noticed something about what just happened there for you. Yeah, did you notice that? And then, at least they can have an opportunity to share. Yeah, actually, I didn't really believe what it is that you just said, or I was a bit unsure about that, yeah? But it's best to air that and have that conversation rather than not. So here's some questions for you. I'm happy to provide this as a handout if this would be handy for you guys. Short, simple ways that you can use questioning to get right to the root cause analysis in a very short time-based consult with somebody that's actually going to get right to the root cause rather than skirting around the surface. Now, think about yourself. Do you like lots of questions fired at you? Or do you rather someone actually has a conversation with you? Which one's better? Just a conversation. We're trying to connect with each other, aren't we? And have a conversation, which is much more empowering. So level 1, this is the one where I was doing at home, wasn't I? Where I'm going, and I might be reading something. I might be doing something completely different and thinking, I'm actually concentrating here and I'm going to get to you in a minute. That's level 1. Level 2, I might actually hear what it is that you said and repeat it back to you very simplistically, but I'm not actually really getting any deeper than just superficial conversation. Level 3 is what we're aiming for. I want to find out more about how you feel about it. Do you want an example? Rivka, come play with me for a sec.
Here we go.
So, Rivka, tell me something really fun that you've done in the last week.
Oh, goodness gracious. Well, the most.
Yeah, I'm
fun
sorry,
that
I've just got to go and do something over here. That's level 1, is it not? Level 2, we'll try again. Rivka, tell me something fun that you've done
Well,
lately.
you're not listening to me, so I'm not going to be telling you anything anymore.
So I hear that me listening to you is really important.
Yes, it is.
So simply repeating back, yeah? All right,
And
let's...
I'm not trusting you just yet.
Exactly. And that's true, isn't it? People will just tell you superficially, won't they? So I need to make a connection with her, don't I? So, Rivka, tell me something really fabulous that's happened to you just in the last day.
In the last day, well, I got to travel and work with a really good buddy of mine, and I really enjoy being in her space and sharing knowledge and a glass of wine with her, and that's been really, really terrific.
Yeah, so I hear having a sense of connection and some collaborative time with a colleague has been really useful for you.
It feels good.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that really big smile on your face, and I can also see that it's you touched your heart, that it matters.
It matters. That's exactly what it is. That's the body language, and it actually shows the truth of what you are saying. So we're having a bit of a banter, and it is an example that we're putting forward, but there is actually truth that sits beneath that, and I hope that was tangible.
Thanks, Elle. So level 3, I find out more. I find out what's going on, but I also hear feelings, don't I? How she feels about it. So my point is, if you're going to have people that are really vulnerable, which you are, it's really important that we connect at that level, is it not? That we have that human-to-human experience, but also find out how you feel about it. Because I can't assume that how I feel about it is how you feel about it. So if I want you to tell me more and I want to connect and build a relationship with you, I need to find that information out. So level 3 is where the power's at. Reflections, I can reflect back. The tone, watch it. It says so much more. My intonation, if you're feeling really vulnerable and I'm really excited, there's a mismatch right from the get-go, isn't it? I need to match you. Use my empathy. What is empathy? Let's talk about pity first. What's pity?
Sorry for someone.
Yeah. No, it's condescending. It's that I am so glad I am not you. Yep. And it might come with, oh, poor you. Yeah. But it's got that patronising, condescending tone of, thank God that's not me. What about sympathy? What's the difference there? Yeah. Yeah.
Doesn't help.
It's not helpful. Sympathy is where I connect me to the story, yeah? And it ends up being more about me than what it is about you. Sympathy is when we connect to the story, yeah? Empathy is when I can stay back from the story and I can observe what that human's experience of that is. And then I can report that back to a client just so they can connect deeper to that. All right, so it's there to create awareness, connection, and deeper understanding. But what's useful about it is when I don't have I statements in it, how I think about it, how I feel about it, and it's all about you, there's no judgment. And that's really important with vulnerable communities, isn't it? Yeah, marginalised people, super important.
Has anyone been watching Love on the Spectrum?
No, tell me about that.
God, it's this amazing and brave a group of young people on the spectrum who really want to date and find someone to love. And because they're on the spectrum, you're seeing just some of the stuff you're talking about where they don't have they don't have often the facial expressions that provide us with cues, and they're not good at reading them in other people.
Mm-hmm.
God, it's amazing, and they have some great people helping them, and I just think they're so incredibly brave to share all of that.
Yeah, and it's important that we have awareness around that, isn't it?
Reminds you of how much is in the way we connect.
Express, yeah. I also want to talk about another simple thing that's really important in terms of judgment. We've got pity, sympathy, empathy. We have two other things, and one is championing and the other one is cheerleading. What's the difference between those two things? What's cheerleading sound like? Yeah, so someone comes along, they've done something that you've wanted them to do. So remember, you used the word, I can't quite remember what it is, and Rivka said to you, if all goes to plan, you know, regarding that we're going to send them off and they're going to go off and do their breast screen. And Rivka's like, if all goes well, yeah? Wasn't compliant, there was a word there that you used, but I can't remember. Can you remember it?
No.
You were saying then they'll go off and do it. But anywho, if someone did do that and then we see them, cheerleading is, oh, well done you went off and had your breast screen done, yeah? Because it's something they've been putting off and putting off and putting off. Cheerleading has no place, yeah? That's my judgment, it's how I think about the situation. Championing is where I say, you have gone off and done that and what it's taken for that human to go and do it. Yeah? It's an important subtlety. Why, when things aren't going right for a client, I want clients to feel like they can come and see us. I don't want them to feel like they can only come and see us when things are going well. Yeah? And often clients will put off appointments, they won't show up when things aren't going well. And the very point of the exercise is we want them to show up. We want them to come in early, don't we? And we want them to have discussions with us so we can put in place structures, support structures, steps, so that we can catch them and partner with them so that they don't end up, you know, in hospital or in a worse situation than what they currently are. So championing your clients is using empathy words. I notice that you seem proud about that, yeah? Yeah. What did it take for you to get to that appointment? You showed real resilience to get there. Yep. You called on support structures to get there. Whatever it is, it becomes about them, not you. Does that make sense? Motivation. How do we motivate others? This is such a big question, and it's something that I wish I had $1 for every time I was asked, how do we motivate people? We don't motivate people, but what we can do is we can create the environments where people will motivate themselves. They will tap into the things that they're very passionate about. What makes them show up? Now think about yourself and think about your daily routine that you have. You will prioritise every single day the things you value in life. Yep, you'll put off other things that are of lesser value, but the things that you value, you will not do. Yeah? Does that make sense to you? Think about kids, think about grandkids, think about family members, think about, could be personal hygiene. But the things that you value in life, you will always show up and do. So we have two types of motivation. We have external motivation and internal motivation. External motivation are the things that we feel pressured to do. KPIs, making sure that we're ticking off compliance for Medicare so that we can do our care plans and our health assessments. We do our immunisation course so we can give immunisations. We follow our wound care stuff. We follow it to the line, yeah? And so if we want other people to come onto our retinal nurse-led clinic, we need them to see what they're going to actually gain from coming along this journey. What are they going to gain? What are their team members going to gain? And not only that, what are their patients going to gain? Remember, Bodenheim says at the crux, at the core of a high-performing medical centre is who? Patient. So what's in it for them? Why is this going to be important for them? If I had to pose that question to you, what's in it for you personally? What are you going to gain getting that retinal clinic up and running?
For me personally,
Yeah.
I'll get a sense of joy that the equipment that's been sitting in the clinic for 3 years is getting used, and that will continue to identify clients early for diabetic
Yeah.
drop, which we've already identified one in the last 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Since we started the PDSAs towards.
So what I hear is not wasting equipment, and prevention is a core value for you. Yeah. What about for your team? What can you see is going to be beneficial?
So for my team, some of the load off the diabetic nurse so that she doesn't have to manage the retinal side of the diabetes clients will be lifted off her shoulders.
Great.
Um,
So teamwork and sharing load. Yep.
All of the nurses are going to learn the skill of being able to operate the camera.
Great.
So anybody can step into the role at any given time, so we can do ad hoc.
So upskilling across your team as well in a new skilled area. Yep.
And 2 of us are going to do the grading course, so we'll have 2 nurses that can grade the photos. So that's
Another skill.
skill for nurses that like to get
Yeah.
these skills. And
So job satisfaction, teamwork, sharing the load. What about for your patients?
for our patients, early intervention,
Yep.
early referral to specialists,
Yes.
better outcomes visually for them, more support,
Yes.
different directions from that point where they go within the clinic.
Great. If I had to ask you how important is it that you get this clinic up and running, and I had to ask you from 0 is not important at all, 5 is, it's all right, and 10 is, this is really important, what number would you give it? An 8. Yes, it's pretty important to you. I can hear all the good reasons and justifications and your passion for it. What about your confidence? That's quite a different question now. So we've got importance for the community and you, but now confidence also factors in my team members, my environment.
Confidence that we can successfully implement the clinic.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say about 8.
Yeah, great.
we're
So
not relying on-
high importance, high confidence, yeah? So why I did this is because I wanted to demonstrate how we can work through in an appreciative process. Did you hear the aliveness in that discussion around her picturing how it's going to look and how it's going to impact all team members? It's an appreciative process. What's currently working well? We've got great teamwork. We've got great leadership across the whole organisation. We've got great collegiate between the 2 of you, but we've also got really fantastic opportunities, haven't we, to move into a new area, and that's the design phase. What does it look like? What are we going to gain? What's going to ascertain here? But we haven't jumped right from what it is that we want to do to how, okay? So think about a PDSA, we normally go plan, do, don't we? I really want to highlight that there's a missing step, and that's exactly what we just did then, which was her why statement. Why are we doing this? Now, if I want other team members to come on board, I need them to enter into those discussions as well. What are you personally going to get out of it? Because if I want you to put energy, effort, time and commitment to this new initiative, you need to really picture that and to articulate that. Then you need to think about how that's going to impact the rest of us. We're in this together. And then you have to think about how it's going to impact our patients. So it's a big picture, isn't it? But if I don't do those steps, I'm going to go, I've got a really good idea and this is how we're going to do it. And I might feel like I'm the only one. I might feel quite isolated in this journey, and I might only be able to do it for so long before I burn out and my passion burns out with it. So we want to bring others with us, don't we? So you saw this, which Rivka highlighted in the mapping and the, what were we doing? Mind mapping section. I was going swim lane mapping, no, mind mapping. And this is my tool that I use, and it's got on the end of the spokes as a wheel, they're blank areas that you can actually write the different components of your clinic on. So it breaks it down into really bite-sized chunks. So rather than thinking about what components do I need to consider, you can write down budget, people, resources, the equipment. You can also write down things such as, you know, the training that you were talking about. What things do we need to factor in, and where are we currently at? What score out of 10 in each of these areas are we satisfied? And where's the easiest place for us to start? Which part of the wheel, or which spoke of the wheel, or which components of the wheel are we going to start with? And it could be data, looking at getting the retinal numbers in our clinic. It might be having team meetings about getting people in the room to have discussions. It might be applying for a grant, who knows? But those things you can start to clearly identify. This is the bits that we did before. And when we craft up a why statement, this is what I did live with you. Yeah? What are we going to do? Why are you wanting that? And how important and confident it is. So not only do we articulate what it is that we want to do, but we've got the why component in it. So if we have a look at the PDSA, I've added a few bits to it. Why will we do this? How will it impact me, my team and my patients? What's the importance and confidence score? What will we try first? When we're talking about change, it's really important that we only try bite-sized change, isn't it? If we try too much change, we can't work out what worked, what didn't work, yes? And we never get that opportunity to have reflective practice time, which is important to celebrate the changes that we have made, the progress we've made. We just keep looking at what's ahead, what's next, what have I got to do, yeah? Have some time to look back and go, wow, we've made a big difference in a short amount of time. Then in the planning, think about how we're going to do it, who's going to do it. So you've got delegating the roles, because it's a big job just for you on your own, even though you're passionate about it. Where are we going to go and do the course? Where's the clinic going to be held? And when? Sort of what timeline? Yes, that's all in the planning part of the PDSA. So there's a few steps rather than just going from the plan to the do, isn't there? Can we put in the why statement? Then we've got the SMART goal detail. How's this all going to flow? And just like I did with you then, if you had to think about your retinal clinic, what's your first step, do you think?
Educating the staff, getting them all on board.
Okay, so educating them about the need, or educating them about?
So onto the second PDSA. So the first one was highlighting the need. So
Great.
grabbing the data and taking it to the team.
Yep.
And then we sat around and had a play session with the equipment.
Great.
And then I populated all the instructions
Yep.
on how to do the scan,
Mm-hmm.
how to upload the photos. Currently we're using an external grading free application. So now into our second PDSA. I'm not answering your question at all.
No, you're right. You're doing the thinking behind it.
So we're into our second PDSA. So obviously life in the clinic got in the way, so we didn't do the educational sessions that we wanted to do. So we've aligned 3 dates in December that correspond with our podiatry clinic, which is where our diabetic clients are going to be. So we'll
Great.
hopefully be able to walk out of the podiatry clinic into the retinal room.
So is it going to be an education session to your staff, or is it going to be an education session to the patients?
So myself and Aboriginal health worker are going to work as a buddy system for
Yep.
those 3 sessions, and on the 3rd session the diabetic educator will come back in and we'll write our 3rd PDSA to take us into 2020.
Yeah, great.
And hopefully by early 2020 we'll be running the clinic in tandem with the podiatry clinic.
Great.
Hopefully.
So you're hearing timelines in that discussion, aren't you? You're hearing people, you're hearing the detail around what is going to happen, and that's super important because if we're going to measure whether it worked or it didn't, we need to make sure it's realistic and it's time bound. We also need a confidence score with it. So 0 is no confidence and 10 super confident. Where do you fit with that?
Probably it's December, so probably about a 7 in confidence that we'll get those 3 sessions achieved.
Done. Yeah, well done.
So I blocked, secured the time,
Yes.
but obviously as nurses and Aboriginal health workers we're reactive. So if someone comes into the clinic that needs to be triaged, that will take preference
To
over the
this.
retinal clinic.
Yeah, but still a high confidence score of 7.
Still a high confidence.
And then the last component is writing it in a positive language. Yeah, what are we going to gain rather than what we're not going to do? Yeah, so it's not about reducing or stopping, it's about what we are going to gain and what we are going to do instead of. Being precise and thinking through the dates, the times, the people, all of those key components, setting the priorities. As you said, coalface can really flip things over, can't it? But what's the priority? What's first? What's second, etc. And then keeping it really small. I always just say 1%. It's really the bite-sized pieces that are important. And adding in the confidence scores, as I said, is super important to the SMART goals. When we review it, we come back to that appreciative process. What worked well? What did we learn? What needs to be tweaked and adjusted moving forward? Where are the next opportunities? Okay, so make sure that when we're reviewing processes with our teams, that we come from that appreciative process. And then that's when we get to the do. Did we do it? What happened? And what's our next step? Okay, the PDSA cycle is just following that same appreciative process, and it's just there to reflect how did we go. The PDSA is only meant to be that, 2 to 6 weekly cycle, isn't it? Not for the year down the track or too far out from the game. And that is over and out, my friends. All right, well done, and thank you so much for hanging in there.